Hello and welcome back to the NWR Virtual Investor Conference. I'm Andrew Gagan from Ausbiz. Thanks for joining us. Next up, we speak to Spectur, ticker code SP3. It's an Australian-based developer of security, surveillance and warning solutions powered by solar, the Internet of Things, camera and cloud-based technology. The company owns the rights to its innovative hardware and disruptive cloud-based systems, which are deployed to provide solutions to industries including government and utilities and the building, construction and civil sectors. Spectur's core products are solar-based deterrence and surveillance systems and associated cloud-based platforms. These systems incorporate cameras, lighting, audible warnings, and a hardware of Internet of Things platform, as well as remotely accessed and connected via mobile technology to a cloud-based platform. Just a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, please do so at the end of the presentation, and you can do that by using the Q&A panel on your screen there. Let me introduce the Managing Director of Spectur, Jared Dyson. Jared.
Hi, Andrew. How are you going? It's great to be here. It's a real pleasure to listen to how you actually described Spectur then. I'm hoping it sounds like a bit of a word sandwich when you read it out like that, but I'm hoping that I can try and make it clearer and everyone can see how exciting Spectur is and can be. So I think to start with, let me just share with you, get you to suspend belief for a minute or your logic and just imagine for a minute. Imagine if you had a site manager on your construction site that could be in 5 different places at the same time, that could tell when deliveries were being delivered and could bring other contractors to site, that could maybe do some time-lapse video while they're there. Or imagine, for example, that you had a lifeguard that you could put on a remote beach, and that lifeguard could know when there was issues with storms or if there are sharks in the area and tell people to get out the water, or perhaps interact with them and help them if they've been injured or harmed. Or maybe even if you could have a security guard at a building site or a construction site where, in a remote location late at night, who's always there watching, able to determine when there's really a trespasser on site. It's not just the wind blowing a branch. They can check it out and confirm it's a person, and then tell them to leave, call for some help. Well, these are the sorts of things that Spectur provides. It's an equivalent person or a technology platform that solves these problems. It's an autonomous sensing, thinking, and acting platform that solves problems. So what does that actually look like? Well, I'm going to share with you briefly a little video that gives a few, ideas about some of the things that we do. So we are active beaches. We can provide safety and communication systems. We can do this on even the most remote locations. This is Lucky Bay in Essex. We can be used to warn of hazards, for example, getting surfers out of the beach when there's sharks, stopping graffiti during the day. Equally effective at night using particular, cameras. And we can also discover many other very interesting and exciting things. People doing all sorts of activities, usually not the right thing. Using our thermal cameras, we're able to identify individuals in total darkness. And using our AI technology, determine exactly when trespassing is occurring and notify you then. The camera systems are useful just to generally have a look and see what's going on. So you can see what's happening, even to the extent of being able to observe, perhaps school safety or children cross the road. These platforms come in a variety of different shapes and sizes. They can be deployed fully with no cables, no wire, anywhere that you like, including at some iconic beaches. There you go. That's a little short Spectur video. So what does that actually look like? Well, from a warning point of view, we're able to put platforms in very remote locations without needing people on site or power or wide internet. And these systems are useful for warning people firstly sensing a hazard, whether it's a shark in the area or bad weather conditions or like, and then being able to communicate to those people either automatically or via people manually being able to speak from a remote location. We also have security systems. Now, these are used for construction sites, but also for other locations. On this particular site that I'm showing you here at the moment, related to illegal dumping. So people are disposing of things like asbestos or construction waste in public areas. And, you know, previous issues that were happening here was, as well as the dumping, they tried trail cams to try and stop the dumping, but they got stolen. They tried other security systems, but they had too many false alarms from kangaroos coming through the area or the wind blowing branches. It came across Spectur, and we were able to provide them a solution that works very well. This is a state government department. And I'll give you an example of this particular joker arriving on site in his vehicle, planning to dump a whole lot of rubbish. He's identified. Now I've got to get out of here because they've spotted me. But it turns out that he's got bogged. So now he's got to unload all the stuff from his truck, which he was planning to dump, so he can actually get himself out of being bogged. But it turns out he can't get out. So now he's got his friends he's got to call in. And we're recording all of this. We're notifying the authorities. They're watching everything that's going on here. He gets towed out, but he has to load all his rubbish back into the trucks because, he knows he's been identified. So there's an example of how we don't just record crime with a camera, which is what cameras do, is we stop it or we deter it. And that's really the very, very big difference between a solar-powered camera and the deterrence platform we have. These can be used for other applications, just simply have eyes on sites. And if you think about today more than ever, it used to be I can't be on 5 different sites at the same time. You can't even be on one site if you're in lockdown. So the ability to be able to see what is happening remotely, either in a live view session or through time-lapse footage as we're showing right now, enormously valuable and can be done in almost any location, any place, no wires, no cables, set up in less than an hour to provide really good visibility. So these are just some of the applications that we have at the moment. We are developing some new technology as well along the way. I'll lead you on to some of this here. So this is some of our more communication platforms. So not just safety, warning, surveillance, but the ability to have two-way communications. And so we can do that in a couple of different ways. One is through a signboard. You can see signboard on these systems. It's digital, so it's fully programmable from an app or from a web-based platform. Allows you to display a message to anyone. You can change it at any point in time. And we also have, for example, if you look on this particular photograph in the middle, is a VoIP phone. So as well as the main camera system that can see the beach and communicate, is we have a camera-based VoIP phone. So say if Bob gets stung by a jellyfish and wants to come up and press the button, as he can get put through to medical authorities or a ranger or a surf lighting authority to say, hey, I need some help. They can see them on the camera, can see the beach, and they can see them face to face. They can have a conversation. And in fact, on the far right-hand side here, you can see something else we've been exploring, which is a smart box. So you can imagine the ability for a remote operator to deploy a defibrillator perhaps, or a bleed kit or a first aid kit from a remotely controlled and only remotely openable box. This is kind of some of the things that we're working on and some of the things that we have in practice right now. And then I'll just move on from that. So what does this look like when you start putting it all together? The business, we are much more than a solar-powered security camera company. There are lots of people that do that. We're solving problems right now in security, surveillance, communications, warning, and other areas. And at the moment, we've been very, very focused and disciplined in what we're doing. So if you have a look at this chart today, and it's a bit of a noisy chart, but you can see our geographic presence. We started in WA, it continues to be our largest location. No matter how much we grow the East Coast, we keep growing WA as well. But even then, we probably only make up 25, 30% of the WA market, and it's 50% of our business. And similarly, we've been narrow in what we're offering at the moment. There's a lot more AI that we could bring in, or sensing, but we haven't done it yet. We are a limited number of resellers, and we're really only focusing at the moment on, from an outbound sales point of view, on utilities, government, and building and construction. And that's leading us to, albeit rapid growing, $5.2 million of revenue. We were run rating in the last quarter at 7.6. Now, if all we did was get the same level of penetration in WA that we have elsewhere in the world, or elsewhere in Australia, and noting that we're in New Zealand and the rest of Australia too, just that alone moves the needle by a factor of 5. So do nothing else except get the same penetration as WA. And we can do that simply through continuing the process that we're on now. We were established in WA, we've built more brand, and we've had more time to build that reputation. That will extend on its own. We also can look about how we move to market dominance. So at the moment, we're probably only 25% in WA and that elsewhere. If we were able to move from, say, 25% to 40%, what does that look like? You can see that's another big number there. If we were to move into other sectors, so, obvious places for us to look at would be to push into mining, farming, oil and gas, a lot of other remote facility type areas. There's not a lot we'd have to do from a technical point of view, yet that would potentially add a lot more business into us as well. And then you start looking at product expansion. What if we were to do more with remote sensing? At the moment, we're just touching that, or more with AI. And again, we're doing AI, and we've got proof of concepts doing more advanced smart cities AI, but at the moment, that's not what's in our numbers. So again, that increases, and that's just in Australia and New Zealand. If we start looking, even if we just said, let's just look at a couple of states in America, what would that look like? And so you see this progression in the numbers of what we can do. And I'm not saying this is not a revenue forecast, because we can't do all these things at the same time, and they will take some time. But the point is that there is a very large addressable market for us, what we're doing at the moment. We're trying to be very disciplined and not be the fox that chases the thing and catches nothing. We're staying focused on our geography, on the sales channels that we have and the customer sectors that we're in, but we are going to pursue those adjacencies. And a lot of the things that we're showing here are places that we will move in a stepwise fashion. So very exciting, very large, multi-billion dollar addressable market when you start looking at the broader business. The obligatory capital structure, share price and volume slide. We've made some progress in the last 6 months in particular. Our I guess cap structure is pretty clean. We don't have a lot of options that are, we have no listed options that are out at the moment. The only unlisted options are internal within the business. We've got a really great top list of shareholders at the moment. Generally, a lot of shareholders, very supportive, very encouraging. So we're quite pleased with what that looks like. I've even made my name on the list as well. So final highlights. I think we've spoken a little bit about this before, and so there's not new information I'm showing here, but we have had really good, strong growth in H2 of the last financial year. I think it's fair to say that COVID did have an impact on us, not so much COVID, but the impact of lockdowns on some of our customers. But as we've been moving into more institutional, particularly government type customers or larger constructors, is we're finding that become less affected by the impact of things such as lockdowns. And, we're getting this really good growth in particularly equipment sales. But what all of these equipment sales do is they bring with them a recurring revenue stream as well. So we really build a recurring revenue stream, which was the green bars at the bottom here. And it's been quite resilient. Even in COVID, it only had a very small, downturn here, certainly relative to what we were seeing in the more volatile sales parts of the business. And so we have been run rating largely at more than $3 million per year now of recurring revenue, which is made up of subscription revenue. So every sold system has a subscription revenue. and also our rental business as well. So that's, it's a great high margin, 60 to 8% gross margin subscription business, which has been very, very stable, and we're continuing to add to it with the sales that are coming in here. So that's pretty exciting for us as well. And then from a cash point of view, we've had 3 positive quarters of cash in the last 2 years, which is very exciting, given that 2 of them were during COVID, and the last one was with almost no government support at all. So we're certainly, moving our business forward at all the right levels. Well, it's very exciting for us. We have, great, financial strength at the moment. We finished the financial year with 1.6 million in the bank. We've got more than 1.6 at the end of July. Undrawn loan facility of $1.5 million. So we're well capitalized to do what we're doing right now organically. As I mentioned before, the recurring revenue is pretty strong too, and a great pipeline. In fact, if I was to do that chart again now, it'd probably be closer to $5 of what's in our pipeline at the moment. So, pretty strong tailwind that we have at the moment. I mentioned before a little bit about what's got us to where we are, and some of it is focusing on larger customers. If you look at this financial year just gone, we would have done more than $2 million of work with customers that were more than $100,000 in either order size or as a customer. The year before, we had none. So, pretty exciting transformation. It's that shift. And as we particularly move towards bigger customers in utilities, and we've had some really good growing success, multiple customers now in the telco space, supplementing customers that we have in the water and the power space as well. With government in particular, it takes a long time to get in, but when you're in there, you continue to grow and you build these trusted relationships. So that's certainly maturing for us as well. And we're seeing with construction and building, our push into much larger constructors or into the larger alliances that are going on, and particularly with the big infrastructure builds that are going on around the country. That's been, really good for us as we've expanded in there. And then probably some of our latest technology is around these safety and community services type devices, both on the East Coast and on the West Coast of the country, expanding more into this safety and warning systems, which is really exciting. So, what comes next? Well, from a technology point of view, we're really working on how do we scale up our production. There are, we were, quite pleasantly surprised with demand, particularly coming into H2 this year. And so we're looking at how do we do our production to be able to match that demand, protect margins, and deal with, some interesting dynamics in the supply of componentry at the moment. I mentioned before about expanding into other sectors, both through AI and through the Internet of Things, and how we do that, and what's our partnering arrangements. How much do we do through developing it ourselves? How much do we buy it off the shelf? How much do we partner, and what might we acquire, in fact, down the track? And looking increasingly to modularize our systems as well will allow us to respond more quickly to customer demands for different types of camera or facility or sort of auxiliary devices, and generally improving the customer experience too. From a sales point of view, it's keep doing what we've been doing. It took us a while to build and onboard our sales team right now. A tremendous team. I think that team can scale with us through to 15, 20 plus $1 million, particularly as they're moving to these sort of larger customers. And of course, we're going to continue to look for the right acquisition. We've been doing it for a long time. We've bought nothing, but that certainly is not demonstrative of the sort of going on in that area. If we're very, very fussy, it's very important for us to make sure that we buy things that fit within our strategy and that are done at the right price and with all the right cultural fit as well. So, that's my story. I'd love to take some questions.
Jared, thanks very much for the presentation. Yeah, let's get to some questions then. And this goes to revenue. When do you expect recurring revenue from subscription services to cover the cost base?
Yeah, so at the moment, we're run rating at about 3.2. And depending on how you want to look at the cost base, it's sort of 5 to 6 is our core overhead, closer to 5 of the business. So there's a little bit of work to be done there. I think that, we will continue to supplement project revenue for some time, but we are not a long way from it. The difference between 3.2 and 5 point something is not so far. And every time we sell more project revenue is bring in more of that subscription revenue along the way. And we've been really fortunate. Our systems have been so sticky. Our churn rate is very low. We will announce some new churn numbers in our annual report as well later this month.
And as the company grows, will the mix of sales versus rentals shift over time?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we're exploring. We've actually looked at introducing a leasing model as well, just to sort of complicate it a bit more. The rental model is quite good for particularly customers in the building space at the smaller end of town that have, a need for maybe 3 to 6 to 9 months. Whereas larger builders tend to buy them and then move them between projects. And I think what's happening is at one level is we're seeing probably, more focus on the outbound customers. So maybe a slight, proportional reduction in the shorter term rentals, but then we're also seeing more of the longer term rentals that are coming into our business and the sales as well. So, there's a couple of different things that are going on. We've also got a lot of customers that are really taking advantage of the opportunity to capitalize fully on expenses that have been doing some more purchasing, whereas otherwise they might have rented. So how those things balance out, I don't know. I would speculate at the moment that the ratio will stay the same and both will grow. That's probably the safest answer at the moment.
Okay. And Jared, given the current global semiconductor shortage, that's clearly impacting supply chains. Is that affecting your company? Do you feel as though it could impact Spectur if that shortage continues?
Oh, yeah, look, it's a great question. And Andrew, it's actually much more than just semiconductors. It's almost all electronic componentry. And it changes almost on the day as to what it is you're buying. A real benefit for Spectur is that we have in-house engineering in both hardware and software. And so unbeknownst to our customers, we continue to engineer and re-engineer a lot of our hardware to deal with what is available and not available in the market. And so, how the sausage is made, no one sees inside the box. But if that particular capacitor or semiconductor is not available, we can re-engineer around that. So we're managing it in 2 ways. One is obviously being able to re-engineer around what is available in the market. The other one is, we do have, I would say higher than we would, if you look over the last few years, what is an appropriate level of inventory to carry? We carry probably a bit higher than we would normally do, so that we've got the time for that engineering. So the idea of doing just in time doesn't really work when we've got all of these, toilet paper phenomenon going on. So we're holding a little bit more stock in componentry, and we are also, re-engineering to suit when things are become obsolete or no longer available because it's sold out.
Yeah.
So we're good with that. Yeah.
Further to that question, in fact, on your inventory levels, there is a question of how long then before you have to invest again for those big purchases?
Well, so I think it's not about invest again because we're sort of buying every month. I think we've scaled them to a certain level, and I think it's probably going to sit at that inventory level for a while as we start drawing out of it. And we hold inventory in components, sub-assembly and finished goods. And so there's a little bit of an evolution between those things. We draw between the different elements that are on our balance sheet. But I don't think we're going to see that level of inventory go up substantially. Or if it does, it will be in response to particular project requirements, and it'll be quite temporary.
Okay. And what type of strategic acquisitions are you seeking?
Yes, so I mean, we want to be a company that's delivering autonomous sensing, thinking, and acting platforms anywhere, anytime for people. And so it's really people that fit in that ecosystem. So that can be, potentially some people with an AI capability. So that would fit in those sorts of areas. That's something that we buy at the moment. Instead of buying it, maybe bringing in in-house. Remote sensing. So at the moment, we do a lot of sensing on our platforms, And we have developed some of our own independent sensor technology. And we want to expand more into that space. So potentially acquiring companies that do sensing in our space, separate from camera-based sensing, would potentially be a customer base in that area as well. That would be another area of interest for us. And probably down the track, this isn't sort of a right now, something we would be looking at would be in the same way that we formed a joint venture in New Zealand with a suitable reselling type partner, is if we were going to move into a country, the most likely way I think would be an acquisition of a sales partner or a channel partner for us there that would come with licenses, sales channels, distribution networks and the like. That would probably be something, but that's probably the second acquisition, not the first one.
Okay. Another one from Joshua. What type of advertising and marketing activities are you undertaking to capture market share?
So, we've kind of evolved a little bit from a business that was very focused on inbound marketing. And we did spend a lot on certainly paid search and related items to that. But what we've done is over the last 12 or 18 months is we've recognized, certainly as the sort of B2 business that we are and the customers that we want to have, is they tend to not be as reactive. Requires us to spend more time on outbound marketing. So we've shifted some of our investment towards more traditional salespeople and also more brand building and collateral building, which substantiates that story. And so it does have a longer sales cycle, but what we see is the fruit of that coming through now is with these larger, more strategic institutional customers. This isn't going to be, Bob and Joe's building broken into on Sunday, I need to buy a camera on Monday, which is we got a bit of with a lot of inbound focused marketing. But it's more about these are the types of customers that we can make a real big difference in value to. How do we reach out to them and share that and start that conversation and bring them on that journey?
Okay, just a question in terms of sales and pricing. Did you have any large one-off sales in the fourth quarter? And have you tested any substantial price increases? What does that do to churn and sales?
Yeah, so there's no large one-off sales that we haven't announced. Or we had multiple large sales with multiple customers. And again, that is a product of us having built this outbound sales pipeline, and we have a really great pipeline going into the future. So that probably answers the first part of that question. Remind me again, Andrew, what was the second part of?
Just in terms of pricing, whether you've managed to alter that and whether
yes. So we did put in a small price increase at the start of the calendar year, and we are reviewing pricing right now because as anyone who makes anything we're aware of, it's not just a shortage in the electronics and semiconductor space, but basic commodities like steel have become expensive. And so, we've had to respond to that as well. As much as we can, we've looked at how we improve our productivity and efficiencies in production. But in certain areas, we will absolutely be looking at how we maintain and protect our margins going forward. But whilst also being cognizant of stress that's in some of our markets too.
Okay. And Jared, a question from Anson. How are you going with the development of your intellectual property within the business?
Yeah, so we, certainly in the first few years of our life as a listed company, there was a bit of time and money spent on getting patents in place. What we've, I think what we discovered there was, and is evidence right now, is a number of companies openly, took our technology, and then we spent quite a bit of money on lawyers trying to stop them, and got to the point where it just became overwhelming as a company to try and continue to pay the legal fees to defend those particular patents. So I think given our size and where we are right now, is focus is on providing, a very good service to our customers, which leads us to have low churn and to continue to innovate and develop our technology at a relatively rapid space. And what we're seeing is that if I look at the competitor that are out there, there is no one that looks like Spectur. There are other people that do solar powered cameras, but to everyone that I've ever spotted just buys a camera from someone else in China or Europe and sticks it on a pole and buys a solar panel. And that approach isn't what we're doing now. And there are simply problems that we're solving that cannot be solved by taking that approach. And to get to what we're doing now, which involves integrating hardware and software, we've spent more than 20 hours of field trialing different things to get to the place that we're in right now. And that's a huge barrier for everyone to follow us into. So we think that there's a more defensible barrier to entry at the moment, continuing to innovate, develop our unique platform. We'll revisit that down the track, but at the moment, focus to protecting our IP.
Jared, thanks very much. Apologies to anyone whose question we didn't get to. But Jared, do appreciate the presentation, and thanks so much for joining us from Spectur.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you all.